A very good evening to you. You're watching the weekend edition of Primetime News. I'm Stephanie Lazarus. Before we head into the stories in detail, here's a look at the headlines for tonight.
Religious freedom has been secured in Sri Lanka, a certification from the president. Cuban revolutionary leader Fidel Castro inducted among the retired heroes. Motions in place to increase the dengue fine also to 25,000 rupees. The Marwa drug which plagues the youth in Sri Lanka. A Newsfirst expose. Navy Sports Club beats Kandy Sports Club to continue their unbeaten run in the Interclub Rugby League.
On to your top story tonight, the 200th Jubilee celebration of the Radha Lugama Methodist Church was held under the auspices of President Maithripala Sirisena today.
The Radha Lugama Methodist Church in Siduwa, which was renovated, was declared open to devotees today. An issue in enrolling Christian children to schools was brought to the attention of the President, to which he assured that a discussion will be held with the Ministry of Education regarding the matter. We all know the importance of a religious and spiritual vision for the goodness of a humane society in our country and the entire world. Every individual should have the right to follow their own religious beliefs. As far as we know, it is the vision of every religion that anyone and everyone has the right to follow their own religion and the religion they desire to follow. Therefore, I must clearly say that we must nourish our country while protecting these values at all times.
Also on to a story that made it to the headlines. Branding public places with the names of politicians is a common practice in Sri Lanka. However, the late revolutionary leader of Cuba, Fidel Castro, has set yet another great precedent to the world before his final farewell. The leader of the revolution strongly opposed any manifestation of permanent tributes or structures in his name after his demise.
Late Fidel Castro's ashes are being laid to rest in a cemetery 9 days after his death at the age of 90. Tens of thousands of people attended a rally yesterday led by the late leader's brother, Cuban President Raul Castro. In it, he announced that Cuba would ban naming any monuments or roads after Fidel Castro at the request of the late leader. Fidel Castro's ashes are being interred next to those of the 19th century Cuban independence hero Jose Marti. The Santa Ifigenia Cemetery is in Santiago, known as the birthplace of the Cuban Revolution. The funeral brings an end to 9 days of national mourning across Cuba. Meanwhile, at home, an event was held at the Communist Party headquarters today to honor the late Cuban leader. There were black people, white people, yellow people and even brown people in Cuba. There were natives and migrants. There were people from various religions. All of these people were brought together. If they were not brought together, they would have never been able to defend their country from the superpower USA, which was just 90 miles away. They would poke their fingers into their affairs. That is what has happened to us. We have gained independence but have not been able to create national unity. That is why the colonialists poke their fingers here. We have to learn the lesson from Castro.
Since I came to Sri Lanka a few days ago, really I could appreciate how Sri Lankan people love Fidel. His wisdom made him a universal leader. Fidel is not dead. Men like him never die, and as it is the responsibility that he live forever.
The Ministry of Health has drawn its attention towards increasing the court fine for the charge of maintaining areas conducive for the breeding of the dengue mosquito to a sum of 25,000 rupees.
According to reports of the Epidemiology Unit of the Ministry of Health, 76 dengue-related deaths were recorded from January 2016 to the 30th of November, while 46,000 dengue patients have been reported within the same time period. 2,500 dengue patients have been recorded during the month of November alone. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health says that 10 districts in the island, including Colombo, Gampaha, Hambantota and Kalutara, are at the risk of a dengue outbreak. The latest inclusion to the 76 deaths caused by the dengue fever was the death of a young woman from Madahamulla village in Minuwangoda. The tragedy did not end with her passing, as her 2 children also remained hospitalized with a serious case of dengue. Around 50 other residents of the same village had been hospitalized over the past few days due to the dengue fever. Our correspondent said that though a majority of them have returned to their home after receiving treatment, around 10 people continue to receive treatment at the Negombo hospital. The whole of Madahamulla are receiving treatment at the ward. The doctor says that this ward should be taken to Madahamulla.
2 women come to inspect the dengue situation. They are constantly on their phones. Then they get every household to sign a document to say that they inspected the house. So the PHI fumes the area and leaves. We are forced to leave our village. Why aren't those at the top looking into these matters? That is all they have to do. They must find those who maintain such breeding grounds.
Even though some are produced in court, they are only imposed a fine of 1,500 rupees. When they are produced for the second hearing, they are fined 3,500 rupees. So do we pay compensation for the loss of a life, which is 1,500 or 3,500 rupees? A minimum fine of at least 25,000 rupees must be imposed. Otherwise, our people will never pay attention to this matter. A communique issued by the Ministry of Health notes that in the event a person dies of dengue, a compensation must be paid by the person or institution responsible for the breeding of mosquito larvae. This fine or this law must be imposed on the people after correctly identifying the mosquito larva. For instance, a person from Anuradhapura comes to Colombo for a particular purpose. He finds accommodation at some place in Colombo and returns to Anuradhapura. During this time period, he gets bitten by a mosquito. The virus does not enter the body immediately after the mosquito bites. It takes some time, so he is most likely to develop the virus while in Anuradhapura. So no matter how much we inspect his household in Anuradhapura, it wouldn't matter because the virus entered his body while he was in Colombo. So we must be careful when imposing a fine on an area where mosquito larvae are found. Areas in several main cities in the country, including Colombo, which have become safe havens for the dengue mosquito, were recorded on the camera of our U reporters.
Well, against this backdrop, even though a fine of 25,000 rupees has been proposed to tackle dengue, no steps have been taken to clear the garbage in Colombo and the surrounding areas. This matter was discussed in Parliament yesterday as well.
We asked Champika Ranawaka, who has the Urban Development Authority under his purview, the people of Colombo are not ready to make yards to recycle the garbage of Colombo using incinerators in the area, because the Colombo Urban Council collects only 35 tons of garbage a day. If we bring in incinerators for 700 tons of garbage, we will never be able to stop garbage from Colombo coming into Colombo. They say don't bring the garbage from Colombo. Certain MPs say do not bring it to Puttalam. The other MPs say not to bring this to Colombo. Certain MPs from the Gampar district are saying not to bring it here. Everyone is saying that this is the garbage from Colombo and are protesting against it being brought to their area. There is no such thing as garbage from Colombo. There is a garbage problem in the country as a whole. We must all find a solution to this garbage problem in the country.
Reports have emerged of a new drug identified as Mava, which is circulating and is being consumed by school children.
Newsfirst is able to discover that children from schools have adapted to purchasing this drug from vendors. This drug is not being sold targeting children, but there are a number of health complications that arise after consuming these. If you take a look at India, showing this particular intoxicant is the main cause for the increased number of oral cancer patients. The other point is the name of this substance that can be changed, but it includes tobacco and areca nut. These are harmful to health.
We do. Our parents also get called to school. We are addicted to these. We cannot do anything because we need it now. Even my friends are in the same situation. We are addicted to this.
According to the drug eradication laws, these are not classified as drugs, so they become common. Some people are being arrested while some are not. The youth become an easy and exploitable market for these substances. I ask the vendors, you have children too. It is a crime to sell this to children. This is used as a common substance in countries like India, Pakistan and Nepal. So this is brought into our country as well. It cannot be brought legally. That is why they use illegal methods to bring this in. We can be contacted directly on 1984. Through this hotline, we can be notified of any drug.
The Lance Corporal who sustained injuries after stones were hurled at the SLTB bus he was travelling in during the private bus strike was subjected to another surgery today.
A resident of Navalapitiya, Lance Corporal G.R. Chandana Shant Sumanaratna was based at the Kankasanture Army Camp. He is a 38-year-old father of two. Deputy Director of the Anuradhapura Teaching Hospital, Dr. Avanti Karnaratna, said that the condition of Lance Corporal Shant Sumanaratna, which remains critical, is being monitored while he is being provided with artificial respiration. She said that the patient's head was subjected to a CT scan in order to evaluate the injuries caused to his brain by the attack.
The Newsfirst editorial.
Bending the law for traffic violations? Can the sick and the poor protest against government hospitals? Can the day-to-day commuter protest against the public transport system? Never. Why? Because they are the innocent and the helpless who are dependent on these services. Ironically though, the providers of these services who depend on the demand of the consumer need little thought before they halt their operations, be it day or night. Yet again, it is the innocent public who are powerless to voice their objection against these protests. When government-run hospitals go on strike, those who are financially able can easily obtain the services of private hospitals. When the public transport sector resorts to stubborn action similar to that of a 5-year-old child, those who can will travel in their own vehicles. These actions eventually consequence the helpless, while the rich and those capable feel as little as a slap on the wrist. As the innocent cannot protest life itself, the present-day Shylocks, as it was in The Merchant of Venice, force the people to sacrifice a pound of flesh. Why does this happen? Certain professionals, so to speak, have created a monopoly within their respective sectors amidst a backdrop where state ownership, state responsibility, government duty and its capability are gradually crumbling down. Be it the government in power or the government that was in power, it must more or less be held responsible for this injustice caused to the innocent people. Let us take a moment to recall the bus and three-wheeler strike which was temporarily suspended yesterday. The reasoning behind the strike action was the proposed increase of fines for traffic violations. As per the proposed increase, a minimum spot fine of 25,000 rupees was to be charged for 7 traffic violations, namely driving under the influence of alcohol and drugs, driving without a valid driver's license, allowing a person who does not have a valid driver's license to drive a vehicle, excessive speed, overtaking from the left, violating railway crossing rules, driving without an insurance certificate. Apart from travelling above the average speed limit and overtaking from the left, it can be agreed that the remaining 5 violations deserve a far more severe penalty because not violating these laws are the sole responsibility of the driver. With that being said, what is the proper mechanism to give a decisive judgment on the unlawful overtaking from the left? Does Sri Lanka possess the road system to give a fair judgment on this traffic violation? If this is the case, should the police officer be given the power to make a judgment call on his own accord? Do we possess the required technology to measure excessive speeding? Have the relevant road signs indicating speed limits been installed in our road systems? Is it even fair to impose such a massive penalty without ensuring that the necessary infrastructure is in place? Developed countries most often than not use the assistance of CCTV cameras to impose such disciplinary measures. Is it not important that such broad measures are in play in line with such disciplinary action? It is also notable that this 25,000 rupee fine could easily drive a police officer surviving on his monthly wage towards temptation. Bribing and soliciting a bribe are both an offence. Therefore, it is important that we give a second thought as to whether this could lead to the temptation of committing a whole other offence. However, recently, an exchange of blows and throwing of punches were witnessed in a rat race to obtain medical certificates for new driver's licenses. This makes one thing clear. Many have been driving for the longest time without a valid driver's license, which clearly gave them a boost to line up in long queues to obtain the validity to drive. The good things must be admired sometimes. The strike action, however, which left many innocent and helpless Sri Lankan commuters stranded, must be condemned. More importantly, those who attacked the SLTB buses which were in operation during the strike action must also be equally condemned. It is the responsibility of good governance to apprehend those who cause damage to public property and injure the helpless through such rowdy actions. Good governance with good intentions as well as implementation with integrity should be the hallmark of a government.
The News First editorial.
5 people were killed and 5 others were injured in motor accidents which were reported over a span of 24 hours in 4 different locations in the country.
2 people travelling on a motorbike were killed in a collision with a tipper truck which was transporting sand at the Mahaveli junction on the Singhampura-Mahaveli-Thana road in Velikanda. Police said that the accident occurred when the motorbike turned into the main road from a by road. 1 person was killed and 3 others injured in a collision involving a lorry and a hand tractor along the Angama-Dikkumbura road in Elivela area in Gaul early this morning. The deceased was a 44-year-old resident of Hikkaduwa. The police say that the driver of the lorry had fled the scene following the collision which had taken place at around 5 a.m. today. 1 person died and 2 others sustained injuries after a 3-wheeler had plunged into a precipice on the Badulla-Badugekandu road in Horanathotua early this morning. A 58-year-old male was killed when a cab had toppled along the Hurulunikavava road in Galenbindaruava last night. The area in question is reportedly prone to accidents due to the substandard road signs in the area.
Meanwhile, issuing a communique, the Ministry of Finance said that the number of accidents have dropped by 10% due to the imposition of new traffic regulations. The Ministry of Finance added while the number of accidents reported at police stations daily were between 100 and 125, this number has dropped to between 90 and 100 over the past 2 weeks. The communique further notes that 350 to 400 individuals are admitted to the accident ward of the National Hospital due to accidents on a daily basis, out of which 22% of it has been attributed to motor accidents. You are watching the weekend edition of Primetime News. Still in local news, a former chairman of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, Chandra Jayaratne, in a letter to President Maithripala Sirisena, has presented 15 necessary reforms and restructures to ensure good governance in the country.
In the letter titled, "The Ring of Corruption Around the Governance Structure Can Be Significantly Weakened," Jayaratne points out that the President has regretfully accepted that a ring of influential persons were holding back the good governance commitments of the government from being effectively implemented. The 12 points presented by Jayaratne to weaken this said ring include the establishment of parallel court systems dedicated to hear corruption-related cases, enactment of a new Comprehensive Proceeds of Crimes Act, the Financial Investigation Unit of the Central Sharing Information with the Police FCIF, CID and the Bribery Commission, restructuring organization structures of the FCID, CID and the Bribery Commission with separate units to progress the investigation of complaints before and after January 2015. The letter also points out the necessity to amend the applicable laws dealing with the declaration of assets and liabilities in Sri Lanka to expand the scope of application to include all statutory boards and state-owned public enterprises. Empower and require the Financial Intelligence Unit of the Central Bank to impose penal sanctions against any financial service providers. Amend the definition of state property to include all statutory corporations and state-owned public enterprises. The letter concludes by saying that any investments and spends made in implementing these recommendations will be more than compensated by the consequential additional revenue. Chandra Jayaratne appeals that these recommendations be reviewed and implemented early in the interest of delivering on the promise of good governance and assuring economic growth and prosperity.
Yesterday, the world marked the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. Where is Sri Lanka in terms of ensuring the rights of disabled persons here at home?
Since 1992, the United Nations International Day of Persons with Disabilities has been celebrated annually on the 3rd of December around the world. The theme for this year's International Day is Achieving 17 Goals for the Future We Want. This year's objectives include assessing the current status of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, or the CRPD. When taking a look at our own country, according to a survey carried out by the Department of Census and Statistics in the year 2012, there are approximately 1.7 million persons with disabilities who are above 5 years of age. There are approximately 80,000 children who are disabled between the ages of 5 and 19. 45% of these children do not have access to education. On the 8th of February 2016, Sri Lanka also ratified the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. However, in this backdrop, the February 8th movement, which is one of the leading organizations for disabled persons, charged that the Ministry of Social Empowerment and Welfare is trying to subvert civil society efforts at setting up new coordination and monitoring mechanisms for disability rights.
We don't want the Ministry of Social Empowerment and Social Welfare to take disability under their purview. We want disability to be a cross-ministerial issue which should be dealt by all ministries under the supervision of the highest possible government authority. We as persons with disabilities, we have suffered too long. Enough is enough. Just think of us as fellow human beings and come with us, walk with us. It will not be late for society to realize that disability is not inability.
2 tube wells for 200 families. Some might believe that this is not sufficient. However, no one even thought of this until officials of Gammadda interfered.
Gammadda Savia.
I think it is rightful to say that a new light is shining upon the Namadagaspava area. This is what we have been waiting for the past 30 or 40 years. Today, a building worth over 5 to 6 million rupees has been given to the poor people of this community.
The construction of a brand new community hall as a replacement to the old and dilapidated hall was carried out through the Gammadda Nation Building Initiative and was declared open to its people today.
If we had told about this matter to the politicians in the area, it may have cost the entire 5.7 million rupees. We know how our roads were constructed. The politicians constructed the roads in 3 or 4 days. Today we cannot even travel along those roads. As promised, we have received a fully renovated hall. This is the result of the bond between our village and Sirasa.
The Namadagaspava Community Hall was constructed under the financial support of ICL Marketing Private Limited, which is a subsidiary of the Capital Maharaja Organisation Limited.
The Gammadda initiative visited at a poor village like us who was suffering without a proper community hall and provided us with this facility. They have helped us in many ways.
The people of Kuttikulam, Kilinochi were used to purchasing water. They have had to face many sufferings as a result. Many villagers were diagnosed with chronic kidney disease due to the lack of consumption of water. Thirst is something the people of this village have had to inherit from generation to generation. But the fate of 200 families were changed today. Through Gammadda, the nation building initiative, these villagers now have access to clean drinking water. The water project for this village was sponsored by the Gabo Trust Fund. The construction process was handled by the Sri Lanka Navy.
Gammadda Savia. Rata Nagana Jana Pau.
General Secretary of the UPFA, Minister Mahinda Amaravira, says that the fight against the controversial bond issuance will not end until the perpetrators are brought to book.
Ever since his appointment as Central Bank Governor, I was of the view that it was wrong. I am the one who lodged the complaint with the Bribery Commission. There are several people who are coming up with all sorts of claims now, but it wasn't any one of them who lodged the complaint. I was the first to lodge the complaint. We were victorious as he was not reappointed. We know how difficult that task was. We also know the effort of several people who tried to stop it. We have no intentions of protecting the governor, nor do we have a need to save his son-in-law. We would like to state clearly that they are at fault and we can see it from our level too. But if such an incident has taken place through a legal point of view as well, we will not hesitate for legal action to be taken against them.
The awards ceremony of the Sri Saddhatissa Dharma School of the Sri Dharma Vihare in Vanathamullaburalla was held today.
Western Provincial Councillor Dr. Jayantha Silva was the chief guest for the event. We see strike actions everywhere today. Protests are being staged over a minor issue and we can't even step foot on the roads. At times there are no buses to go to school because they are on strike. There are the ones who are reasonable and the ones who aren't. But we should learn how to live without causing any trouble to the people of our country.
Navy Sports Club beat Kandy Sports Club 37-32 today to maintain their unbeaten run in the Inter-Club Rugby League. The encounter, which was played at the Valisara Navy ground, saw Navy lead at half-time 24-22. At the second half, Navy continued to add to their tally as they went to score 13 more points, while Kandy also fought back by scoring 10 points. Navy's 37 points consisted of 4 tries, which were all converted, and 3 penalties. Kandy's 32 points were made up of 4 tries and 3 conversions and 2 penalties. Navy remains unbeaten in their season, winning all 5 of their games, while Kandy Sports Club have won 3 out of their 5 games. The 53rd Carol Service of St. Joseph's College, Colombo was held yesterday. Newsfirst were the media sponsors for the event.
And gentlemen, we present to you the 53rd Josephian Carol Service.
St. Cecilia's Choir of St. Joseph's College, Colombo, trained by Francis de Almeida, performed at the service which was held at the Sandy Abeysekera Sports Complex at the college. Titled Rex Angelorum, the King of Angels, the service included popular carols, classical sacred compositions and Christmas songs in diverse languages. Handel's For Unto Us a Child is Born and congregational carols like Silent Night in its original German, Jesu Redemptor in Latin, encaptured the audience with the joyful spirit of Christmas. The junior choir and the teachers also played their part in making the event more melodious. The College Western Band and the Old Joe's Choir also added more musical melodies to the occasion. Reverend Father Susit Silva, the rector of Aquinas University College, was the chief guest of the event, while Reverend Father Travis Gabriel, the rector of St. Joseph's College, graced the occasion as the guest of honor.
Rex Angelo.
The orchestra titled Young Musicians Concert, organised by the Symphony Orchestra of Sri Lanka, will be held next weekend. Newsfirst caught up with the orchestra during their rehearsals earlier today.
The orchestra will be held on the 10th of December at the Ladies' College Auditorium, Colombo. This year the concert features the Old Joes and the Contempo choirs, who together with the Symphony Orchestra of Sri Lanka bring a special blend of Christmas favourites.
It's time for Christmas and the holiday season, and the Symphony Orchestra will have their annual family concert, and we will be playing exciting music, lot of light music, light classical music, jazz and also Latin. The concert will be conducted by Eshanta Piris. Eshanta Piris is an established pianist, and also he's a conductor for the Symphony Orchestra.
The concert will feature classical greats like Handel's Zadok the Priest and Shepherd's Farewell by Berlioz, and Courtney's musicological journey through the 12 days of Christmas.
My name is Navin Fernando. I'm the principal trumpet of the Symphony Orchestra. I'll be playing trumpet solo, namely two Latin solos I'm playing. One is Tico Tico and Granada.
Yes FM, TV1 and Legends FM are the media sponsors for the concert.
Well, that's a wrap for Primetime News. I'm Stephanie Lazarus. Have a great week ahead. Good night.